Do your players suck? Are you looking to get better ones? Well, let's talk about buy lows, sell highs. Michael Bolton, he's got all of the juice.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I'm bringing a strong enticement of the vibe. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Go to fanduel.com to get started. Also, check out lockedondaily.com and get the best information about your favorite NBA team. Lockedondaily.com, best newsletters going around. Check them out. Hey, we did it. Operation 80K is a success, ladies and gentlemen. We got them. Now, we're on to 100K. Thanks to everyone who has, over the journey, over the years, over the almost, 8 years, 9 years that we've been here on YouTube, that's subscribed, and we've hit 80K subs. I love it. I want 100 because I want that plaque now. That's a long way away. But maybe we hit the extra 20K this season. I don't know. Love it. You guys have been so awesome in supporting and commenting and sharing and thumbing up and interacting and appreciating the work that I do, which I hope is equal parts entertaining and informative, and maybe smaller part nonsense as well. That's sort of what we're here to do. What we're here to do, though, in this particular show is talk about trades. And I think, again, you know the way we're going to do this. It's not about giving you a specific trade this player for this player right now. Not about how it works. It's about engaging. It's about talking to players in your league. It's about looking at someone on your team. And half of the value of this is looking at a guy on your team and you go, man, I've got to get rid of this guy. And you go, oh, maybe not. Maybe there is plenty of things that are going to suggest that he's going to get better. So I don't need to move off him. All right? So if a player is listed here as a buy low, I wouldn't be moving on from them in a lot of circumstances. I would look to acquire them, but buy low does not mean go and get them. It doesn't mean you have to trade for them. Sell high does not mean you must dump this player. This is just all about where is value, what is likely to change, how can you make engagements with this, and how you do that in your own league is just completely up to you. All right, there are many ways to do that with trades. Blunt force trauma, sending trades through, starting conversations, even just like, man, you drafted so well, man, but like that's such bad luck that you got this guy on your team, and you wait like a few days and then maybe chuck a trade off. I actually need maybe some of this guy's value and throw someone else out in the deal. It's all about. There's so much psychology in doing it, right? And I'm not here to be your therapist, so to speak. So let's talk about players. Let's talk about where the value lies in some guys. And a lot of it is about preconceived conceptions and notions and ideas and all that sort of stuff. And that's how you can get it. Because a lot of these players, it might seem obvious to you that they're going to be better. That's true. Like, it might be obvious that Paul George is going to improve from where he is. But people hate Paul George. There are a lot of people who think he's a waste of time on that contract, who think that he was a waste of time, that he's washed and he's not going to live up to anything. There are people who are also going to be worried because Joel Embiid is returning today, that George is never going to have a chance to elevate himself. All that is fair. At the moment, Paul George's numbers, despite the low minutes, he's only playing 28 a night, they're not very good. He is the 80th ranked player per game. Again, a reminder, if you are watching this on YouTube, the ranking that I use for head-to-head category leagues is weighted -1 per game. And then the fantasy points that I've got there are Yahoo fantasy points. So I've got him as like a 39 fantasy point guy. He's averaging 31. I've got him as a top 25 category league player per game. He's currently 80th over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 14 points a game in 28 minutes. So it's not that he's playing 20 minutes a night. Or he's playing 28. And he will play more than that. Nick Nurse will get him up to 36 pretty easily. But 14 is very low. He's hitting 1-3 a game. He's shooting 39% from the field. He's shooting 16% from three. His true shooting is 48%. So while it is very obvious, and the number one outlier that people will look at in this and go, well, of course, it's just the minutes. It's not just the minutes. Right? And that is because it's very easy to say, Josh, you can't buy low on Paul George. Everyone knows his minutes will go up. That's not really what this is about. That is true, but it's not only the minutes. So while there is skepticism about Paul George's health and the way that he's playing, while people think the minutes will ramp up, he's performing well below what he should be doing on a per-minute basis as well. So there is room for this. You do not give up a second-round player or a third-round player to get Paul George. I don't even know that you would give up a projected top 50 player at this point. You may have seen me talk about this on Twitter the other day, that I manage all of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl leagues, right? I do that. And there are 10 divisions of 12 teams. Is that right? Yeah, so there's 10 divisions of 12 teams, and then there are 10 groups of those 10 divisions. So we've got like over 1,000 leagues, like 1,200 leagues or whatever it is. Yes, 1,200 leagues. 120 times 10, yeah. That's actually a little bit more than 1,200 leagues. That's how many teams, sorry. That's how many teams. Anyway, it's a lot of teams, right, that we have. So I have to go through every day and process trades that have happened. And for the stupid me, the second time this season, someone had actually sent me a trade, and I clicked accept on it. So I said, oh yeah, that looks like, that's decent enough. I'm not going to argue. It doesn't look like collusion. I'll push approve, and I go, holy crap, it's my trade. And the trade was, someone sent me Franz Wagner, and I was sending out Paul George. And because, I'm not going to complain about it, I went, all right, I wouldn't have done that trade, but I'll let it go through. But when I posted about this on Twitter, people were like, yeah, that's a win for you getting Franz Wagner. And I was like, is it? I don't think it is. Now, the guy who sent me that trade said, hey, Josh, I'll happily reverse that. I don't want to get a player through in a trade through something which was clearly a mistake, which is unbelievable sportsmanship from that guy. I'm so great. I would have won it, no problem. He said, look, I'll send you the reverse trade back. Don't want to get through on that. And I will think about that trade. But to me, Paul George is clearly a better option than Franz Wagner. This was in a roto league as well, so the games missed for Paul George aren't as big of a deal. But that guy was trying to pull off a buy low on Paul George, and he did through my own stupidity, my own mistake. Right? So when we're looking at this, that there is ability to do this. I think that Paul George is obviously going to be way better than this. You may not. That's okay. And that means you don't have to buy low on him. But if you do have Paul George, don't be worried. It's not just minutes. The shooting is just terrible, and he is not a terrible player. He is a very, very good player. And this will improve. I can 100% absolutely assure you of that. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Start the NFL season and get ready to tackle all of the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you check out the latest stats, you can view all the live play-by-play stuff. It's all there. It's all in the one spot. Why would you want to go somewhere different? Well, in the past, you might have had to, but not anymore. It's all there in that one spot. So live bets become so easy to pull off that they are just in that one spot. All the information is at your fingertips. Get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. And don't forget to gamble responsibly. All right, just another reminder. Let's hit the sub button and leave the comments and the thumbs up here on YouTube. The next player that I'm going to throw in as a buy low player, he started out the season really poorly. He went on an absolute heater hot streak, and the last couple, he's cooled off a little bit. And that is Jalen Suggs. Now, I am very, very willing to admit that maybe my rest of season outlook for Suggs is a little high. That's possible. I think he's a 36 fantasy point per game player. Over the last 14 days, he's at 32. I think he's a top 40-ish category guy, and he's 60th over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 14 points a game. He had a couple of low-minute games due to some foul trouble and some blowouts. The numbers down the bottom of that screen are his complete stat line over the last 2 weeks of games. But there are plenty of outliers here. I don't think he's a 14-point per game scorer. I think he's higher than that. He's attempting just 2.6 free throws a game. I think that he can be... All of these things appear as outliers, by the way, when I'm looking at projections, and later when we get a little bit further into the season, I'll compare them to either projections or to full season numbers. If things are sitting 20% higher or lower, that to me is an outlier. 2.6 free throw attempts, I think he's a 3.5 to 4 guy. The turnovers are also a little bit high for him. But most importantly, he's hitting just 22% of his threes. 22%. I think that we're going to get way more of that from Suggs. He's going to be a better shooter than that. The minutes for him are usually, like, they've been high for most of the season, apart from the random games. Apart from the random games where he's, getting foul trouble or something weird's happening with his injuries. At the moment, like, those 3-point attempts are just too low. He's averaging, over his last 3 games, he's at 5 threes a game at 20% and playing 29 minutes, averaging 9 points. It's 14 points here. I think he's an 18-point per game guy. I think he's a 7 threes a game guy. I think he's a 36, 37% shooter. It's possible he's not, because in the past he struggled and then last season he stepped it up. But I've got fairly decent reason to believe he's a much better shooter than 22.5% from 3. So that'll improve. The volume will improve. The minutes will improve. The free throw attempts will improve. The turnovers will come down. I'm very confident in most of those things happening, which will push Suggs from being a guy that maybe someone thinks is like in the 80s range, which they could, to someone who I think is a very relatively comfortable top 50 player. Like I said, you may not believe in Jalen Suggs as a top 50 player, and that is okay. I get that. I do. I think that the increased minutes for him are 100% real. He played 27 a night last season. I think 32, 33 is absolutely real for him. And that's why I've got that confidence in not only that holding at a higher level, but the percentages jumping back up, the volume jumping back up, and him scoring more than 14 points with 1 3 a game. Like, I'm very confident that stuff's going to jump up. But I would be, like, again, cautious, because there is a world, and I can easily see this, that he is only the 70th best player. So if I'm giving up somebody in a trade, it's like a top 100 player. It's a 110 player. It's like watching to see if anyone makes stupid panic moves on Suggs, because his last couple of games have not been good. What did he do? The last game he had 5 points in 18 minutes, and the game before 7 points in 33 minutes. And that's what's important. 33, 36, 35 minutes, 3 of the last 4 games. But the last 2 games he's combined for 12 points, because in those games, I'm just going to double check the numbers, he's hit 5 out of 17 shots. So the volume's way down, the shooting percentage is way down, and the turnovers are high as well, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, he's had 9 turnovers the last 2 games, and that's not really who he is. So I'm very confident that Suggs is going to be able to do a lot more than that. The next buy low is one that if you are someone who scrubs through these videos, watches on silent, doesn't listen to every part, I get it. And I'm going to say this for this player and the other one of the other ones coming up soon, a lot of times while we're doing it. Lauri Markkanen is a buy low. Except you have to be very cautious about what you give here. Because this is one of the ones, like with Markkanen, where I know that he is better than what we are getting. He is 100% better than what we are getting, right? Very obviously. Except I don't think he's playing in March and April. So when we're talking about that from a fantasy category or points league or any sort of head-to-head format point of view, and you can see that I'm projecting him there at 37 fantasy points a game, and you can see that I'm projecting him around 40th per game value rest of season, using my weighted head-to-head -1 values. That's on a per game basis. But I'm not giving him up. I'm not giving up a top 60 player to get him, because he won't be there. I'm not giving up a top 70 player probably because he won't be there. It's all going to depend on how panicked or what the other person's doing, because they might be as panicked as you are about Markkanen's late season availability, rightfully so, but they might also undersell the short term. So there's a way that you can get Markkanen in, ride where he has a run of top 30 value, which is possible, and then if you drop later on in the year, you haven't given up very much. That's why you don't give up a top 70 now. You see if the other person's got him and just desperately wants to get off because they're like, mine, it's already started. He's missing games and he's terrible. I just need something back. Even if it's like a short term, this will never work, right? I probably should go and have a look at the Yahoo recent trade market section on Markkanen just to give you an example on it. But yeah, a name that comes to my mind is like someone who's got a real short-term bump. BJ Boston, for example. We'll talk more about the Jose Alvarado 6-week hamstring injury, which is just another crazy blow, and we all need BJ Boston on our teams. Like, he needs to be rostered. Brandon Boston is a must roster, like, clearly. They've got nobody. And Boston's not even a point guard, but him and Ingram are going to have so many assists, man. And then you got guys like Jamal Cain who's going to have to do something. and Jalen Noel, who's a nicer, deeper league ad. But Brandon Boston's a must-roster player. But someone like that, who there's so much like rightful hype about him, that when these guys return in like 2 weeks and then 4 weeks and then 5 weeks, you're not going to, like, there's no value in it. And I think Markkanen can provide similar value, but longer term. And then at the end of the season, if you have to drop Markkanen, we didn't give up anything anyway. I'm seeing some trades here of Markkanen straight up for DeAndre Ayton. I think that's fine, because Ayton also may not play at the end of the season. He's also doing nothing at the moment. I can see one here of Markkanen for Terry Rozier or Brandon Miller. That's a terrible trade. Markkanen for Cameron Johnson and Ochai Agbaji. I think that's a W trade. Like, Agbaji probably isn't worth it long term. That's a waiver wire guy. Johnson, same risk as Markkanen of not being available or healthy. An absolute W of a trade. Again, understanding that I might not have Markkanen available end of season. That's something I would do. Now, if we look at the outliers, there's so many of them for late. Now, I know he came back from an injury, but like with Paul George, the injury doesn't account for scoring 11 points a game, or blocking 0 shots, or shooting 37% from the field, or taking under 3 free throws, or shooting 36 on 2s and true shooting of 52, or even the fact that his usage is at 20. Because some of these things, true shooting, usage, 2-point percentage, field goal percentage, they've got nothing to do with minutes. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. He's just bad at the moment. He sucks. He will be better. Those minutes will jump up 4 to 5 minutes a game. The field goal percentage could push to 48, 47. The 2-point percentage could jump up a lot. The 2-point attempts, the free throw attempts, everything, the field goal attempts, everything. Look how many things are just well below where he needs to be. It is a very, very easy and a very obvious buy low, but you've got to be smart about it. You've got to be hitting the right spots. This one here is not related to injury. This one here is just related to him performing poorly. And, okay, it's Cam Thomas. And can you believe that there is a time that you are alive, and you're alive at the same time as me, that I will tell you that Cam Thomas is a buy low, a player that I hate watching. I think Cam Thomas is one of the best one-on-one scorers in the NBA. I think Cam Thomas does not contribute to winning basketball, and I don't think he ever will. And I am almost certain, I'll go double check this actually, that the Nets are plucky this season. They have been more competitive than people have thought. Cam Thomas is their alleged, supposed best player. Yeah, he's the guy that's going to do all this scoring, and I am almost certain that he is a negative on-off player again. He is for the 4th consecutive season, so the team is 7.6 points per 100 possessions better when Cam Thomas sits on the bench. And he was 6.7 last season and 3.3 the year before and 10.9 as a rookie. And yeah, like those first 2 years, whatever. They were both 1,000-minute seasons. But again, the teams are better when he sits on the bench. He can score 30 a night, but teams are better when he is on the bench. A consistent and persistent pattern. But I'm still telling you as a buy low. I don't think there's a huge risk of him shutting down end of season because A, he's a huge part of what they do, and B, like I said, he doesn't make you win. So I think you're right there. Thomas, I've got as a 36 fantasy point guy. He's at 29 the last 2 weeks. So that's not great. He's 107th in category leagues. Not great. He started the season as a top 20 player, and that's disappeared. I've got him as like a 60 to 75 type of a guy. What's going on? He's only averaging 22 points a game. He's shooting under 30% from 3. His turnovers are up. He has not had a single block in the last 2 weeks, and he's averaging half a steal. He's only hitting 2 threes a game, and he's under 3 rebounds per game. We know that you're not going to be getting big rebounds or big assists from him. He's not a defensive stat legend. He's not a high field goal legend. But all of this stuff is well below where it's going to be. And that is me as the number one resident Cam Thomas hater. Anyone loves throwing around the term, oh, man, you hate the guy. No, I'm just trying to provide like an analysis on it. Unless you're talking Taylor Horton-Tucker, which of course, I hate him as a player. He's the worst player in the NBA. I never want to see that goofy dickhead on my screen again. He's so bad. I hate watching him play. I might hate watching Taylor Horton-Tucker play more than I don't like watching Cam Thomas. I can watch Cam Thomas and go, wow, man, that's a tough shot, man. That's great. And I go, yeah, it's like, yeah, Chris Paul hits a 3 to bring the lead down to 47. That's a little bit what I feel with Thomas. And it's a little bit weird at the moment. So he's sort of like pulling right back on his usage. Anyway, all of this is to say that Thomas is better. Me saying this, Cam Thomas is better than this. He's a better shooter than this. He's going to have higher volume than this. He is somehow a better rebounder than this. He is a better defender than this. He's a better steals generator than this. All of this, he is better than. So, he's going to be better than this. I feel confident in saying that. And the last one is very similar to the Lauri Markkanen situation, because I don't think that Anfernee Simons is going to be putting up big numbers in March or April either. The Ides of March is a real problem in Portland, and I think Simons is not going to be immune to that. But he, at the moment, sucks. And I don't know if you heard me say this. I don't think Anfernee Simons is a winning player either. I think that it is crazy to me the way that Portland is running things, and they prioritize this guy. It's like Detroit prioritizing Isaiah Stewart. You prioritize this guy over maybe someone like Scoot, who also might be bad, but Simons is never going to be this good player who leads you somewhere. He's never going to be that. This is a really rough stretch, though. He is 141st over the last 2 weeks. Simons, he's averaging under 27 fantasy points, and I think he's like a 33 to 34 fantasy point player. But he also might not play in March or April. But over the last 2 weeks, he's averaging 16 points a game. He's shooting 30% on threes. He's attempting under 2 free throws a game. He's only at 4.5 assists as well. He never rebounds, we know this. But 2.5 threes is also a terrible number for him. 48 true shooting. He's hitting his free throws 92%. He's never going to get defensive stats. We know this, and he's right on track there. 0.6 steals, which is actually good for him, and 0.1 blocks. But he's way better than this. He's a player like that. I've got him still projected ranked 70th rest of season per game. But he won't be there at the end of the year, I'm pretty confident. This is a horrible stretch for a horrible team, but there are very clear things here that are going to improve. Assists, free throw attempts, 3-point percentage, true shooting percentage, scoring threes, they're all going to improve. Just be very cautious about what you're giving up in an Anfernee Simons deal because of the risk of him not being available later in the season. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who have that same idea. It's about finding someone who's more panicked about it, plus panicked about recent form than you are. I don't know that they'll trade you. In fact, I think they probably won't, even though they should. And that could make it better because it increases his long-term value. But at the moment, things are they're just not very good for old mate Anfernee Simons. Today's episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. With big wireless providers, what you see, it's never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price that you thought you were paying magically skyrockets. With Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about those sort of gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. That is it. Simple, straightforward. You know what you are getting. They are telling you what the price is, and they are charging you their price. As simple as that. So say goodbye to all of those overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with a premium wireless plan starting at $15 a month. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. Ditch overpriced wireless with Mint Mobile deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNBA. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speeds slower, over 40 gigabytes unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. So now we go in and we take a look at some sell high players. Firstly, we go to Memphis. It is always interesting to target very injured teams to look at sell high players. You're not going to be able to sell high on Jake LaRavia or Jalen Wells or Brandon Boston, or maybe you can, who knows, or Yves Messi or something like that. But Jaren Jackson in Memphis, and I put out a tweet talking about who's some of your buy low, sell high guys, and I don't really think anyone mentioned Jaren from memory. But Jaren's cooking. Over the last 2 weeks, he's the 21st ranked category player. He's averaging 37.5 fantasy points over that time. I think his fantasy points are a little bit elevated. He's like a 35 guy rest of season. I think he's like a 50th ranked category player. But at the moment, with Ja Morant out, decent long term, Desmond Bane out, sort of long term, Marcus Smart about to return, but Vince Williams, GG Jackson, Vince is going to be back really soon as well. By the way, not a bad stash if you got that ability because there are so many minutes available for him at the moment, and he's a really good player. But Jaren's taking advantage. And when we talk buy low, sell highs, you need a lot of STP, LTG, short-term pain, long-term gain. You might lose a player in a sell high and they keep doing what they're doing for 3 weeks, and you lose the trade. But it's about what happens January 1st. It's about what happens January 20th. It's about what happens February 12th, or whatever. What is the likelihood that you are going to win that over the long term? You've got to give something to get something. You've got to give that person that value immediately. You can't be like, everyone's coming back, guess it's time to sell Jaren Jackson. You do it before they come back. And it can bite you. Because what if someone's ready to come back? What if Jar is ready to come back and Desmond Bane's ready to come back and there's a setback? Or, Jar does something and trips on his whatever at some point and breaks his whatever. And Desmond Bane restrains his oblique doing 3 sit-ups in the morning to post a shirtless pic on Instagram. I don't know, right? Something can happen. And that can bite you. And then that short-term pain becomes long-term pain. And then you're done, right? That's not done, but it's not a good result. But that's the risks you take in trading. So what's going on with Jaren that's way too high at the moment? Well, he's averaging 23 points a game, for example, because Morant and Bane are out. They're too high scorers. They're too high usage players. And Jaren's a good usage player, but he's not that. He won't be that high. He's hitting 2.5 threes. He's averaging 1.6 steals. He's shooting 57 from the field and 45 from 3. He's shooting 64 in his 2s with a 69 giggity true shooting percentage. That is the most obvious stuff that he's not going to hold. It just isn't. You could say that he can average more than 1 block a game, and I agree with you. But also, maybe he's just not that blocker anymore. And this happens to a lot of players over the course of their career. Jaren's block numbers dropped last season. He became more of an offensive-focused guy. This season, the same thing. Blocks are down. I think they come up from there. That's okay. I do think they improve from there. But not as much as the decline's going to be in scoring volume, 3-point percentage, steal numbers, field goal percentage, 3-point attempts, all that stuff. I think it's all coming down. So, you're looking to can you get a top 30-ish player for Jaren back? Maybe. How you value that's up to you. But I think that in the short term, he's going to be hovering around this number, even if some of these numbers aren't even related to the absences of players. Like the 3-point percentage, the field goal percentage, the 2-point percentage, got nothing to do with players being out. It's about the volume, about how much he's scoring. Those extra steals are just completely out of nowhere. The 3-point attempts, 5.5 threes a game, he's probably not doing that when these other guys return. But we just got to wait for them to return. He's also someone who's had some injury problems as well. So, you never know if something is going to go wrong there. I love Darius Garland. I defended Darius Garland quite a bit in the preseason, but probably not vociferously enough. But I said this, and you would have heard me say it a million times, that the idea of Darius Garland not being able to coexist with Donovan Mitchell was either ignorantly wrong or a blatant lie, because we literally saw it. And now he's doing that, coexisting, but also outperforming Donovan Mitchell. And that's the part where I go, I don't know about that. Right, but I know that he's good. I know that when you have your jaw smashed in and you can't eat and you lose 40 pounds or whatever, it's going to be really hard to play at the level that you're accustomed to. Garland is 24th over the last 2 weeks. I think he's around 50th to 40th to 50th rest of season. He's averaging 37 fantasy points. I think he's a 34 guy. So what's going on here? Well, he's not a shot blocker. He's averaging 0.3 at the moment. That's okay. That's a number we can leave or give or take or whatever. Last season, one of the big reasons where people hated Darius Garland was he turned it over all the time. This season, not really. 2.3. Well, the last 2 weeks, 2.3. But look at this efficiency. He's at 52% from the field. He's at 59% on 2s. He's at 65% true shooting. He's hitting 3 threes a game. Look, the 7.3 assists easily can hold. 20 points a game? Maybe. Maybe he can do that. But if those percentages, the 2s, the true shooting, the field goals all come down, maybe not. The 1.5 steals? That one's a tougher one to hold onto. At the moment, this guy is riding high. This guy is putting up fantastic numbers, Darius Garland, and I don't think that it holds at this level. I think he is good. This is a tougher one to pull off. Because will anyone look at him as a top 25 player? Not sure. But can you sneak a round of value in? Can you get a top 40 guy back for someone who probably pushes into the 50-60 zone? Maybe. Or you don't. You don't have to get rid of Darius Garland. You just can hold on. And you can enjoy what's happening, and maybe you think this stuff is going to hold. When I put these outliers up, these are just the things I look at and go, don't really think there's any chance of this holding. All right, look, he still might be good. Trades are not about you turn good from bad, bad to good. That's not what that is. It's about what is realistically going to stick. And I don't think that he's a 59% finisher on 2s, or that he's a 52% shooter overall. That, I just think, has no shot of holding. None whatsoever. Could he be a 2.3 turnover guy? Maybe. Don't think so, but maybe. but the shooting just has no way, right? So enjoy it, ride it out, understand that the production's going to drop, and if you get an offer that is too good to refuse, or you find some negotiation, you try and confuse people in 2 for 2s or 3 for 3s, or don't go too much more than that, or 2 for 1s or whatever, include him. Get the value to boost, but there's a lot there that just isn't 100% going to hold. I think we can say the same for another guard who's outperforming expectations in Miami, and that's Tyler Herro, who honestly, unironically, has been Miami's best player this season. Really not close. From a fantasy perspective, obviously he has been, but even a real-life perspective, he's been cooking. I think he's around a 60 to 70 ranked player rest of season. He was going in like the 80s, 90s, which, yeah, I've made some adjustments on that. I think he's probably a little bit better than that. But he's 23rd over the last 2 weeks. He's averaging 38 fantasy points. He's averaging 26 real-life points, hitting 4.73s, and there's your automatic, like, what is going on here? 4.73s is a lot of threes. He's had a lot of injury problems over the seasons as well. Some of it's fluky stuff like broken hands, which I'm not going to hold against him, but he's actually cooking at the moment. So what's not going to hold? Well, 4.73s, obviously. 26 points a game, probably not, although maybe. But look at these numbers. 51% on threes, 61% on twos, 71% true shooting, leading to 55% field goal. It is not inconceivable that in 2 weeks' time we come back here and he's shooting 44% from the field. 11 percentage point drop, he becomes a 21 point per game scorer, and he's the 95th best player in fantasy. There cannot be a hotter time to strike on a Tyler Herro trade, and if I got a top 50 player, I would do it. Now, I guess we can harken back. Would I trade him for Anfernee Simons? 100% no. Absolutely no chance in the world. Would I consider it for Lauri Markkanen? I don't think so. I think I would rather ride out what Herro is doing. I think that's what I would rather do. Would I trade him for Jalen Suggs? That's an interesting one. That is a very different skill set. It's steals and some blocks, out of position blocks, for scoring and threes. That one is one that I would talk about. I would think about. It would depend on how my team looks. But I do think that there is some sort of reckoning coming here, I guess, with the Herro production, because that is guaranteed not to hold. And this is, again, sometimes where people get buy lows and sell highs confused. I am not saying that Tyler Herro will not be good. He can still be good, but he cannot do this. He can't do this. Nobody can do this. He will not do this, right? That's where that's the difference. This is never like in a buy low, sell high or anything. It's not a black or white. It's not like good or bad. It's unbelievably good that might become less good, or would definitely become less good, and has the potential to be actually bad, and then swing up to being okay, and then swing up to being average. But this is the peak. It doesn't get better than this. It doesn't get any better than this for Herro. Or maybe it does, because he's averaging 0.2 steals. But it doesn't get any better than this, right? It is coming down. He might go from being the Heat's best player to their third best player. He might go from being a 51% three-point shooter to shooting 33% for 3 weeks. And that is an astonishingly large drop, and it impacts a lot. And that's what we need to talk about, and that's how you need to get your brain focused. Let's go to another guy who's also cooking at the moment, and that is Michael Porter Jr. Very slow start to the season for Porter, and I fielded drop questions on him. What do we do with Porter? He's really doing nothing. And it's true. He was. Now, the last 2 weeks, he's the 41st ranked player. He's averaging 37 fantasy points. I think he's a 31 fantasy point guy. I think he's a top 80 or top 90 guy rest of season. So what's happening here? One of the things is the Nuggets are playing everyone huge minutes because they are... Their numbers, like their record is okay because Nikola Jokic is hard carrying. Their bench struggles, but Aaron Gordon's out. They are playing a million minutes. Porter has an obvious, extensive, repeated injury history to one body part, and that is worrying. And it's not only that. He's averaging 20 points a game. Cool. Largely through the minutes increases. But he's hitting 48% of his threes. He's a really good shooter. Maintaining that, even maintaining 41%, is very hard to do. So that drops down. So his 3.9 threes become 3.1, 3.2. The minutes push back to 32. He becomes a 2.7 threes guy. 20 points a game becomes 17 points a game. 3.1 assists for Michael Porter. Have you ever thought you'd see that day? Well, that's where we're at. That's not going to hold. 1.1 steals. That's not what he does either. And 67 true shooting is an outrageous number. He's also at 2.3 attempts from the line, which, again, something he doesn't do. So much of what is happening at the moment is fueled by that combination of two things. Or three things, actually. Aaron Gordon injury, ridiculously high minutes because of players being out and because of their struggles of their bench, and every shot going in. Now, you could easily make an argument that, well, Gordon's going to be out a few more weeks, so that's going to hold. That's the STP LTG. Short-term pain, long-term gain. All right, is that Gordon's out. So he will keep up with a little bit more in terms of minutes and maybe even more rebounds, playing a little bit of a different position. He might do that. But if they start to get into a groove and playing well and not taking bad teams to overtime, does he start to play 32 minutes? And then you tie that in with him being a 37% shooter for 3 weeks. Very good shooter. Very good shooters don't shoot 42% every single week. It's an ups and downs. That's how it all works. So he is going to go through a slump at some point and normalize. A very hot streak here for Michael Porter. Lastly, this is the one that I think you all knew was coming, but we'll do it anyway. It's Norman Powell. And this is the one where I think that pulling off a sell high on Norman Powell is actually relatively, well, it's not easy because I can bring it up and I know. Give me your gut reaction comment now if you're watching this. I know what your comment is. Who knows if Kawhi's coming back? He can keep this up. He can't. He can't. He can't keep it up. But people will have it in their head that he can because sometimes it becomes an easy thing to go, Powell good, Kawhi out. Simple. That is what people think. But it is not as simple as that. It is Powell good, Kawhi out, Powell shooting 55% from 3, which has no chance of holding. Could he be the second highest usage player in this team behind Kawhi? Yep, he could. Could he shoot 20% less from 3, 20 percentage point less? Yes, 100%, very easily. He's at 55%. He's the 20th ranked player. He's averaging 38 fantasy points. He was a great last pick in the draft. And you'll say, Josh, I got this guy for free off the wire in my last pick. Why would I sell him? You're right. Don't. Hold on to him. Unless there is someone who believes in him as a top 40, top 50 rest of season player. Because I don't. He is a very empty player outside of points and threes. And at the moment, the volume is way up. The three-point shooting is way up. And three-point percentage is the hidden category that influences category leagues the most. And I know you know what I'm going to say. It is a 3-category influencer. Your three-point percentage goes up, your field goal percentage goes up, your three-pointers made goes up, and your points per game go up. No other hidden category influences 3 categories the way that three-point percentage does. And when he becomes even a 40% guy, and he's been a consistent 40% player from 3, totally reasonable he does that. It's 14% less, 14 percentage points less. Throw in the fact that he's at 3 assists and 1.6 steals, which is ridiculous for him anyway. And everything is pushing to him being one of the biggest drop-off candidates in recent memory. But also, enjoy it. Write it out. If you can't get a top 50 player, don't worry about it. Just enjoy what you're getting. But understand that there is no chance, 0 chance, none whatsoever of this holding. None. Don't care what you say. Don't care if Kawhi doesn't play a game at all this season, which honestly is a possibility. A slim one, but I think it's a possibility. Even if that happens, Norman Powell is not this guy, pal. Oops, as I hit the mic. He is not that guy. And you are that guy. So, thanks again for hitting us to 80k subs. Let's keep it going to 100 if you haven't subbed already. I want you to be my sub, so do that. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.